What's going on, everybody? Happy New Year and welcome back to Fall Obsession Podcast, our first episode of 2026. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here. Happy to be back with you guys again. This week, we're starting off the year with an episode that is very special to me, and I have looked forward to recording for a very long time. My guest is my dad, Mark. It has been a long time since I had him on the show. That's wasn't intentional. It's just how it worked out. I think the last time he came on the podcast was back episode 172, somewhere in there, where we recapped his story of getting his truck stolen on our hunting lease down here in Texas. It's a crazy story. We recorded it in deer camp. Go back and listen to it in the archives if you're so inclined. But I've been wanting the opportunity to sit down with my dad and to record and recap some of our memorable experiences, memorable hunts, times in the woods together over the years, all the way from when I first started hunting as a kid up until now. And we had the opportunity to sit down and do that. Call me selfish, but one thing that I've really enjoyed being a part of Fall Obsession and getting to host this show or some of our other shows on our platforms has been the opportunity to document some of my own hunting journeys, my dad's hunting journeys, my son's hunting journeys, and kind of have that in an archive, if anything, right, for us to look back on in future generations. And that's a big reason I'm an advocate for anybody out there, whether you have a show or not, to document everything so that you and future generations can look back and see your journey coming up. So took the opportunity to sit down with my dad and just kind of take a stroll down memory lane, talk about some great memories that we've had in the woods over the years. And it's just a great episode, and I will certainly value and cherish this one for a long time. And I hope you guys enjoy listening as well. We will get the conversation going here momentarily, but I got some discount codes for you guys first from those partners over here at Fall Obsession Podcast. The first one is Hoot Camo. If you are looking for some great gear in some innovative patterns, then look no farther than Hoot Camo. Go to hootcamo.com and use the code FallObsession15 to save on your next order. We got Bear River Archery. They are the official bow shop of Fall Obsession here in the North Texas area where I am located. Justin Canaday over there, he's an exceptional dude. They do great work. He's got a great little shop set up, and he's building a bigger and better one right now as we speak. His new shop and new facility is going to be absolutely amazing. I look forward to getting out there and spending some time with him out there. So if you're in the North Texas area and you want to swing by, go to Bear River Archery in Van Alstyne, Texas. If you're not local to North Texas and you still want to give Justin your business and shop with him, you can shop online and use the code FALLOBSESSION, all one word, lowercase letters, to save yourself some money. If you guys follow us on social media, you undoubtedly have seen us post our pictures and our content from our Tacticam Reveal trail cameras. We love using Tacticam, and they are a proud podcast partner for 2026. So if you want to use the best trail cam in the business, you need to use Tacticam. It's more than a camera, it's data, it's a database, and it is ultimately what we use to try and get an edge on those big bucks that we're chasing every single year. Tacticam Reveal, make the switch. Finally, we are proud to still be working with the Outdoor Call radio app and Outdoors Dan. If you haven't used the app yet, you can download it on any device and listen to hunting shows and podcasts from tons of different producers and creators on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession Podcast on that loop on Mondays, the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts we all know and love. Go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It's free. You can start streaming immediately. Follow them on social media, catch their live shows throughout the week, and don't miss out on any of the content that Outdoors Dan has there on the Outdoor Call radio app. Wherever you are listening to this podcast, thank you again, and make sure that you hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever they have up there for you guys. Turn those notifications on if that's an option. That way you know every week when we drop a new episode. Fall Obsession Podcast streams on all the major podcast platforms, Carbon TV, and then if you like watching the podcast videos, You need to check those out on the YouTube channel. Our podcast videos are exclusive to our YouTube, as well as tons of other hunting films, shows, and some other productions that we put out here at Fall Obsession. We just dropped a new film from our veteran hunt that we did in 2025. The film is called Wellsburg, a veteran hunt story. So make sure that you guys go check that one out on the YouTube channel and subscribe over there. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are in all those places. Make sure you are following us for daily updates and educational hunting and outdoor content from our team of creators and producers across the country. fallobsession.com is the website. Everything filters through there, as well as you can support the brand by picking up a hat or a shirt from there. And last but not least, if you guys have not checked out our shows on Carbon TV, you're missing out. Carbon TV is like Netflix for hunting, basically, except it's free for you guys. You can stream hundreds of different hunting shows, podcasts, films, live streams, from creators across the country, across the world even, and it's all compiled right there on the Carbon TV streaming platform. Fall Obsession has 4 different shows that are on Carbon TV. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, is on Carbon TV, as well as our 2 different hunting shows titled Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Guys, go check it out and start streaming today. All right, that wraps it up for me. We're taking you to the man cave now for this podcast with my dad. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
The power lies within that middle ground.
Hunting transformed my life.
I think you have to be built somewhat different.
That Dale Brisby's a super puncher.
When you get Pop-Tarts on the next Walmart order? I'm serious.
Because to come into this country and stay dedicated to that, it was pretty awesome.
If it's only for one, then you've done your job.
We have to do what's right for the wildlife, and that's our responsibility as hunters.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
I was thinking the other day when we were talking about doing the podcast, last year we only got together on the lease for 3 days together, 2 or 3 days at most.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Yeah, and we already had 3 days this year, although we didn't have much luck. But
yeah, I shot a buck, but
yeah, you don't know that shot anything on the lease. So
yeah, I've probably spent the least amount of time out there so far.
Well, you deserve it.
I don't know about that, but it's been a challenging year. I know I'm going to get Nick back on the show at some point I don't know when, probably toward the end or after the season's over, to talk about some of the struggles we've had out there, because he's no stranger to the same problems that we're having out there as well. So it's
right. Well, this year has just been not the big bucks that we used to have out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's been big deer out there, or at least 8 points. Doesn't seem like we get many bucks that go much bigger than an 8.
Yeah.
But we've had a couple really nice 8 points, and the last one that I had at camp stand, that really big 8 point, and I'll try to put it in the podcast video for folks to see, he was a big, heavy, just big-bodied, heavy-horned 8 point stud of a buck. And of course, I think that picture was on November 9th. I shot my buck out of that stand, a buck that wasn't as big as him, on like the 6th or the 7th, I think. Mm-hmm. And I remember I left that morning. I hunted the morning of the 9th, and I went home. And that evening, the evening of the 9th, is when he was in the tree that I'd been sitting in all weekend. Wow. So that's the closest I've come. I still regret regret shooting that deer and not being in the stand that Sunday night. But I mean, how was I supposed to know that was going to happen?
You got to go to work too. They got to think about those things. So
yeah, work.
Yeah. I mean, I was driving the other morning, and it was a quarter to 6, and you know where that installation is for the oil well with the flame on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was coming up around that corner, and a nice 8 point came by me, not big enough rack, but I mean, he was between, from here to that wall in front of my truck, and he just, he's just trotting along, looks at me, and just keeps trotting, and I just, I mean, it's too dark to shoot before shooting light.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I was on the phone 2 days ago, Saturday, with Lawson up in West Virginia, the guys that just had our veteran hunt up there.
Right.
And he was calling me because they had it was right after Robert, he'd shot his buck, and then David, the other guy, he had shot a buck. And it was right after David had shot a buck, and he was driving to go pick up David, and he was calling me while he was driving, and we're chatting about it, and I just hear him go, "Oh!" I was like, "You okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I almost hit a deer." he was driving along and almost ran over one on the road while we were talking. So I got a kick out of that. Well, welcome back, folks, to another Fall Obsession podcast. I'm sitting here, not my normal backdrop or anything, here at my parents' house. Was sitting down with my dad, actually recording this podcast in my old bedroom when I was a kid.
Now it's the man cave.
Yeah, now it's the man cave. But yeah, sitting down with my dad, Mark, wanting to just talk some hunting and catch up. It's been a while. I looked up before we started this. One, how many episodes you had been on, which I didn't realize it was 9 or 10, like up in that range.
Right.
And so that's pretty cool. But then also to see the last time you were on the show, and the last time was episode 171, so 90 episodes ago. It's been a minute.
I told you it's been a couple of years, probably at least. So probably the truck. You said the truck episode.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was 2 hunting seasons ago, so right. It was 2 years ago. Right. It's titled "Big Pig in a Stolen Truck," and we might talk about that at some point in this episode briefly. But if you want the full detailed story, a whole episode's worth, you guys can go back and listen to 171. We recorded that one in deer camp in the camper. But yeah, 2 years ago you had your pickup stolen out the deer lease with a dead
old hog in it.
Yeah, a dead pig in the back. But no, I'm excited for this one because not just to sit down with you, but I like in-person podcasts, and majority of my show is virtual. Mm-hmm. Online, which is great. I get to talk to a lot of people that I wouldn't get to talk to otherwise.
Right,
but it's this is my favorite, is when I get to sit down in the same room as somebody and have a conversation. So always enjoy that. But definitely wanted to take the opportunity to capture some of our adventures over the years, because we've been hunting together for a long time. Like, I mean, you got me into it and everything, got me into deer hunting, and it's cool to see it kind of come full circle to a certain extent to now with Wyatt being out there.
A while ago, you made a comment, my longest hunting partner, and I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, we've been hunting all your life together since you started hunting, so
yeah, and
that'll change over to Wyatt one of these days, but
yeah, I took him out there the last time I went out to the lease. The only time I've been out since we were out there first week in November. I took him out there. We were only out there one night, and of course it was hot, like it is every time that I seem to go out. It's blazing hot. Yeah. But I took that 22 out there that you bought from Mr. Ken when I was a kid. Right. And had him start shooting that. I don't know if I have a video of it. I'll show you after the episode. I don't know if I've showed you that, but no, he did not hit the target hardly at all, but he was having a good time. So.
Yeah, but he's 7.
Yeah,
so
7.
Got a few years to grow into it.
Yeah. So, but that's the idea, and I'm excited because I kept that. You started me on a youth model 243 as well.
Well, we started with that single shot 22.
Single shot 22. And then we had that
243
little semi-auto 22 long rifle, and then youth model 243, which I still have, and that will be Wyatt's first hunting rifle. It's a good rifle for a kid to start with, so it's a good build and a reliable gun. I did take it out there with me too and shoot it a few times. It was a little off. It'd been about 12 years since I think I put a round through it at all. So, yeah.
And we chose the 243 just to let your audience know, because in Texas, most everything that you need to kill, you can kill with a 243.
Yeah.
You don't need a larger caliber. You can get it if you want to, but.
Well, and 20 plus years ago, whenever I didn't realize it, but that gun's that old now. That's crazy. But 20 plus years ago, when we got that gun, I know that other calibers, other other stuff was out there, I might have not just been as in tune to it, but I know that there's a whole lot more, at least a whole world of deer hunting calibers that I've been exposed to through Fall Obsession as a bow guy. So I don't know. I've thought about building out my own hunting rifle at some point and doing something creative with it based on some of the modern intel on it, but the 243 definitely was it's a good caliber for just plain old whitetail hunting, and especially for a youth whitetail hunter. Right. I feel like so.
Right.
Yeah, it's been good. Some of the stuff, and where I'll start off our conversation, I wanted to ask you, because we just talked about you got me into hunting when I was a kid, or deer hunting in Texas, that is. But where did it start for you?
My dad, I grew up in Florida. My dad, your granddad, was not he was a bird hunter. But he never included us. I have two brothers. We were never included in the hunts. He'd always come. I can remember him coming home and with with quail and dove, and but he never took us hunting. So it was when I was in my mid-30s in South Carolina, and I was pastoring in a church there, and had two good buddies that were deer hunters. And they were both on this hunt club, which is 2,000 acres of timberland. And they had a certain amount of members. You had 30 members on the club. And you pay your membership fee and, so forth and so on. And they said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Sure." And I'd never deer hunted. And I can still remember, that's where I killed my first deer. And I can still remember sitting in a stand over a food plot. It was a long, narrow food plot. And sitting in the stand and seeing out of the corner of my eye, my peripheral vision, I saw 3 deer come out. And I still remember I shot the biggest one of the 3, and it ran toward me and then behind me and went in this big old deep ditch. And I got the shakes like I'd never gotten shakes before, like most deer hunters, at least. That was my first kill. And
yeah.
So, but that's where I started and hunted there for a number of years. I take your mom there, and I can remember your mom, killing deer out there. I remember she was pregnant with you, by the way. And we were out there we were going to Charlotte, North Carolina, to see my brother for Thanksgiving. So we stopped there. It was between Columbia, where we lived, in Charlotte, and we stopped there to hunt that morning, and then we're going to drive up for lunch. And I remember your mom. I put her in a stand and went to my stand. I came back. I didn't see anything, and I said, "How'd you do?" She goes, "I killed a buck." I said, "Really?" She said, "I drug him out." And I said, "Yeah." So your mom's always killing bucks. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, but that's where I started with those guys, and they were good friends and kind of helped me along. But there was nobody to show me the way or to increase your knowledge is so much better than mine, and you're a better hunter than I'll ever be. But that's just but you've learned it and have progressed further than I'll ever go. So anyway.
Well, I don't know about that.
So
we don't have that much of a different amount of deer on the ground.
Yeah. So I went from we went there. We moved. Of course, we lived in Wyoming, and we hunted some pronghorn up there and mule deer and whitetail and had a little bit of success. It's a whole different world hunting up there than the tags and so forth. You got to tag a certain area. You got to apply for, et cetera, et cetera. So,
right.
I found it harder. But in South Carolina, by the way, back up a second. These guys, I'd goose hunt with them and duck hunt with them, and we did a lot of different kind of hunting. And in Wyoming, did a lot of pheasant hunting with a friend of mine named Bo in our church, and he was a great pheasant hunter, and he'd always kill his limit and help me with mine if I needed help. So, which I usually did because I'm not good with a shotgun. But that was fun. And then, of course, moved back to Texas and, pastoring a church over there in Richland Hills. And that's when Mr. Ken comes in the picture.
Yep.
And that, he was on a lease out in Hamilton, and that's where we got on to start with. So.
Yep, and that's where it started. It was it was 300 acres total, right? Or around
It's
that?
about I think 323. And why don't you describe for your audience the property?
Well, so it split the road, and I guess it was a gravel road. It was a public road. It wasn't private. Like there was traffic on it, but it was a gravel road, and it was both sides of the road. My orientation might be off, but I believe the west side had more hills, more cedars. It was a little bit tighter, just as far as the layout, if you will. Mesquites, there were mesquite thickets out there as well. And then the east side of that gravel road, I want to say, I don't remember the footprints of each one. It totaled the 323, like you said, but the one on the west side, I believe, was bigger. But then the one on the east side was more open. Like it had tree lines, it had creeks, it had a big hill kind of on the, I think it was the south side, that went up there to the property line, but then it opened up into fields, like very large,
Big field.
very large and big fields. I think about that property a lot because
And it had a nice big ditch, like running through.
yeah, like a dry creek almost, or sometimes had water in it.
10 feet deep.
Yeah, and it was two sides of that field,
Right.
and this is a massive field, like 400 yards from one side to the other, about ish, if I remember right. But yeah, two sides of this field had timber and that big ravine running around it. So yeah, the deer, it was a highway for the deer to travel around and in and out and pop out in that field wherever they wanted to. So
we never hunted that because I'm too stupid to know that.
Well,
and you were too young.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think back and I mean they're all learning years and formative years for me as a deer hunter. But it's like, man, it'd be really cool to have that property now, knowing what I know now. And all of my memories of that, I think back to, and it's like, oh man, I could do stuff differently with that one than what we had going on. But again, not to take away from the experiences that we did have, because we had some good and some memorable hunts out there,
Right.
for sure.
What's your most memorable hunt out there?
I have a few for sure.
Okay.
I know, like, I mean, obviously killing my first deer out there. And that was
SST stand.
SST stand is what we called it. It was a little
Ground blind.
we made it a ground blind. It was just brushed in. It wasn't a pop-up or anything like that.
Just a shooting rail.
Yeah, we found like 3 or 4 trees that were clumped together. You nailed up a couple rails in there. We brushed it in, and it just overlooked this little clearing. No feeder or anything. We might take a bag of corn and pour it out there, but because you can bait in Texas, for those who don't know. But yeah, that was, you always saw deer there, pretty much. Always saw deer there, and that was ultimately where I killed my first deer. I hunted with you until I killed my first deer. That was the deal. I can't hunt by myself until I kill my first deer. So you were there with me. I can't remember the order that all the deer were killed in, but you shot 2 deer that same hunt, and then I shot a big doe, and that was my first one. And then you killed two other does or something in that hunt, if I remember correctly. So it was busy. It was right after Christmas. I don't remember. I think it was like December 27th or 28th or something like that. It was right after Christmas. So that year. But yeah, that was a memorable one. And then there was the chocolate horn buck that I killed out there. That was the biggest buck I ever killed off of that lease.
Right.
10 point. I think that was 2008 or 9, I think, is the year that I shot that deer. But I remember it was on the side of the gravel road that all those fields were on. But there was a stand up that hill on the south side. That hill went up to the property line.
Right.
And right before the property line, there was a guy that had put a stand up there. And that was one of the deals that we had on the lease, was kind of like we have now with Robbie and Nick on the Texas Dirt Place, is if you're not out there, it's like everybody had a standing rule that the other guys can hunt your stands.
Yeah.
You know, obviously if you're out there, you get first dibs, preference to your own sets, but we all shared. So there was a box blind and a feeder up there, and I had never hunted up there before. We'd driven past it. We knew it was there. It seemed like a good spot. So you dropped me off in the Jeep, and that hill was steep. I remember you had to put the Jeep in four-wheel drive to drive up and down the hill, and that's with just normal weather, normal ground conditions. It's not even wet or slippery. That's just how steep it was. But you drop me off, and then you leave, and I walk over to the blind, and there's a padlock on the box blind. And I remember, like, I don't remember. I've been hunting for a few years at that point. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember being angry when I saw that. I was like, "Are you serious? Like, we all have a deal out here." And I was like, "I'm hunting this spot." So I had my little folding stool with me. So I set that down. I just sat down on the ground right next to the blind, to the left of the blind. Mm-hmm. And the feeder's ahead of you, 80 yards or so, through an opening in the trees, lots of cedars around, and then off to the left, going back to the south, there's an opening in the cedars, and the grass is really tall in that opening, and it's a clearing, and then on the other side of the clearing is the actual property line. You can see the property line and the tree line from there. But in between that fence and where I'm sitting, the grass right there is super tall, like waist high or taller. So it's within the last hour of legal light. And I look over there to my left, and I just see antlers going through that tall grass. And I'm watching those antlers go through, and then this head comes up and looks at me, and I see that it's outside the ears, which if you're from Texas, you know that that's what you look for to determine if it's a legal buck. Right. So it's outside the ears, and then his head turns, and he keeps walking with his head up, and the grass is tall enough I can't see his body. I can just see his neck and his head. So I just freehand threw my rifle up and put the crosshairs behind his ear and shot, and he dropped right there. And that's like, I still remember. I remember every detail of that hunt, like as far as what it looked like, those antlers coming through the grass, his head coming up, what he looked like in my crosshairs. I remember all of that. And that buck, if folks have watched any of our other podcast videos in my normal office where I record at my house, that buck's on the wall behind me. He's not a monster deer inches wise, but he was an older deer. He was probably 7 or 8. Like, looking back, I didn't think anything of it at the time, but looking back now at the pictures, I'm like, that, looking at his face and his body size, I'm like, yeah, that's a mature buck. That's an old buck. He had probably already gone downhill from what he once was antler size. Right. But he was I don't know, he's probably only 120 inch, give or take, 10 point, but dark chocolate horns.
That's what I love, the dark chocolate horns.
Dark chocolate horns. That's the only deer I've ever killed with dark chocolate horns. I've killed plenty of deer that have just had regular old brown horns. You've shot a buck out there with like really white horns, that big 8 that you shot. Right. But yeah, that's the only deer I've ever killed with dark chocolate horns, and I remember that was really cool. But
couple of hunts I remember you and I, we had a bust morning, and I can't remember what year. In my mind, my memory's fragile as I get older. But after the morning hunt, you and I said, take your rifle, and we walked. I didn't have my rifle with me. You were the one with the rifle, and we were just walking the property kind of, and we were on the west side, and you said, Dad, there's a buck. Mm-hmm. And he was in a stand of trees, and I couldn't see him. And I said, great. And, of course, we're standing in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, middle of the 2-track road, yeah.
So I said, okay, and I got down on hands and knees, and I said, lay your gun on my back and get a good rest and shoot him. And you did.
Yeah, I dropped him right there.
Yeah, at a nice 8-point.
Yeah. I remember that one, too. That one was that was my first buck with an actual, like, frame. Yeah. Like, early on, I had shot a couple button bucks when I was first starting to hunt, and then I shot a little cow horn buck, just a little 2 or 3 point, which is also on my podcast wall, despite being a tiny little rack.
First one.
It was my first actual.
And in Texas, legal to shoot a cow horn.
Yeah, legal. So that one, just as a cool memory to have on the wall. But I'll just say that 8-point, yeah, that was my first actual deer that had big antlers, it felt like. And again, looking back, it's a nice deer, but it's not a monster. But looking, like, at the time, I was like, oh, this is a giant.
Yeah, well, and the way it was hunted and shot, it was like 11:15 in the late morning, and it's just standing there by an oak tree, and you said, there's a buck standing there watching us, and didn't run off, and you took it.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a good one. What other ones stick out in your mind?
I think about the one that you talked about just a minute ago, that I was up on the west side and in the Mesquite Flats, and it was overlooking a food plot with a feeder way at the other end, and I remember the evening. I was sitting there, and there's lots of mesquites around me, but I remember looking off to my right, and I'm in a box blind, and I see these horns going by me, which that never happened to me before. You usually see them out in front of you, but it was coming by me, and I'm thinking, well, maybe this one will go down here and come out. And when that buck came out, he came out with his head on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that, but he came out almost like he's sniffing the ground, and the funny thing also, that was the day that I said, we drove to the stand, and I said, here's the keys to the Jeep, you go to your stand.
Yeah.
And I'll let you just, because I'm thinking we're out in the middle of these 323 acres, what can you hit besides a tree or something? So I said, drive to your stand.
That was also where I learned to drive at the age of 11 or whatever.
But I remember shooting that, and you and I had talked, and I think on the phone, I said, yeah, I shot a nice. And I said, is it bigger than basket rack? I said, basket rack. And I wanted to surprise you. When you came up, you said, boy, that's bigger than a basket rack, Dad. So
that was the wide one, right?
Yeah.
Real wide.
Yeah.
And just in hindsight, didn't the year before, weren't you hunting that ground blind that we put up where I shot that big doe that one time? Mm-hmm. Weren't you hunting there and had a deer come in the same way with his face on the ground like that?
Yeah, pretty close, yeah. Yeah, so I guess that happened twice. Yeah.
I wonder if it was
it could have been the same, because I didn't shoot anything.
Yeah, you didn't. Well, I think you shot at him. You said, but you missed that year.
Right.
And so in hindsight, I just wonder now if that was the same buck.
It could have been the same one.
If he just was weird, I don't know.
I remember another thing. I remember, and you remember well this. We were out there, and this is before we had cell phones with apps and weather and all that, and had a rainstorm come in, and we tend to camp on the west side, and we camped in an open area, probably 50 yards from the road.
Yeah, not far.
Yeah, and so it's raining, so we got our tent, and there's we camped the same place, never had any issues, and so it's raining. We're thinking, okay, so we went to bed, and then you woke me up and said, hey, Dad. I can't feel the ground, and there's water coming in the tent. And I reached down, there's about 2 inches of water. I said, we're okay. And then later on, I was like, Dad, I can't feel the ground. And it was a big monsoon, and we had to jump out and haul the tent up, and all our supplies floated downstream. I just remember that.
Yeah.
And your mom was worried that we were going to drown, because she's watching the weather, and we had no idea.
Yeah.
And thankfully, we had a 4-wheel Jeep to get out.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that too, and it's so much different now with, and we've talked about that before. Like, I mean, yes, in that situation, a cell phone with a weather app, if that had been around at that point, probably would have been helpful and useful. But we've talked about that in deer camp nowadays, the difference in hunting back then versus hunting now, when we have phones and weather apps, and you can look up tomorrow's wind direction, and you can look up or you got cell cams that are sending you pictures and all this kind of stuff, and all this great intel. But then I don't know, I wonder if, or I've said this before probably on the show, like, hunting was so much easier when I was quote unquote dumber and it was, well, where do you want to hunt tomorrow? I think I'll just try this stand. And you got no idea what's coming in at that stand. If it's does, bucks, anything, you might not even know if there's corn in the feeder.
Right.
I'm going to try that spot. And if I don't like it, I'll get out and go sit somewhere else.
One thing that impressed me about you early on is we were talking about where do you hunt, and I tend to I'll pick this stand, or I'll go over here, somewhere that's tested and tried and true, and probably has maybe a source of corn or food plot.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, I'm going to sit open air, Dad. That's what you say, open air.
Yeah.
You just go find a place and sit, and usually shot deer.
I shot a few deer. I definitely saw some deer doing that, but yeah, I remember it was early on when I started doing that. It might have been the first. I don't know if it was the first time I did it, but it was toward one of the first times I did it, at least. I don't remember where I was on the property, but I was like tucked back in a cedar. I was right off of the 2-track road that ran through the property, not the gravel road, but the 2-track road that we drive the Jeep on. I was sitting right off of that somewhere, and I was up on this hill, looking down this hill, and it kind of opened up a little bit, just see what walked through there. And I remember it was like I hadn't been there 20 minutes, and there was a doe standing down there, and I shot and totally missed her. She ran off. But for whatever reason, that sticks in my mind as just one of the first times that I ever did that. Just finding a spot and sitting down. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It worked fairly well. And you tell the story from the hunt club in South Carolina of that one guy in there that would always go sit in a lawn chair off the road and normally filled his tags.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we had these 2,000 acres, and we'd always go deep in the woods, with a tree stand, and lock in there somewhere and thinking, okay, we're going to see deer. And this old guy would sit in a lounge chair like you got on your patio. You just sit there, 20 yards, inside the fence on the road, and he'd always kill deer because, we're going deep in the woods, but they just walk by pretty close out. So.
Yeah. You don't always have to go deep. I mean, that principle is even applied in some extent out Texas dirt, because I think it was our third year out there. You made the conscious observation that we were always driving like from camp down into the property, and somewhere like within the first couple hundred yards on the main road leaving camp, you always see deer running across the road. So you found that spot where camp stand is now in the mesquites, about 300 yards from the camper, and that is by far the most consistent spot we have on that property as far as deer regularly showing up, and it's right there close.
But you figure out why.
I think I figured out why, but I don't know that for sure because it's been 5 years on this property, and I don't know that I haven't found anything. I'm like, oh, that works, because I suck at hunting, but I'm of the opinion that we have so much mesquite thickets up there, especially on the north end, like where that stand is and pushing north and kind of northeast of that. There's so much just random mesquite thickets.
Nothing, 80 acres or so.
Yeah, we estimate it's 60 to 80 acres of just a mesquite thicket, and it's open enough that the deer can maneuver through there easily enough, without feeling like they're still roaming, still being able to browse. And there's little clumps of like little oaks and stuff here and there, so there's little pockets of acorns throughout the mesquite thicket for them and everything. But yeah, it's open enough that they can still see, but it's tight enough in there that they feel protected.
Right. And
we just dropped a stand in the middle of it. And I mean, it's the one spot there's an old road that runs right behind it. I say road, it's just a path. It's not even a dirt road. It's just two tracks you can drive a truck on. But there's a path behind it for an old power line that I don't even know if it's in use anymore, but there's a power pole right there. And so that's what gives us the access to it, easy access to it without having to cut our way in. Because that's the other thing, that just if we do another setup like that, we're going to have to cut our way to it. Well,
I was out there last week, and I think I found another spot, but
Yeah.
it is through. We'll have to clear some stuff out of it, but the truck's already been in there.
Mm.
So I'm trying to figure out a way so we don't have to do a lot of cutting and easy access and move back a little bit further, going a little bit farther north.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's, I don't know, trying to figure those deer out and everything. Like I said, sometimes the intel can feel so overwhelming that I wish you could go back in time and just, like we did back then in Hamilton, just pick a spot and call it good. And I don't know, it also, and you might remember this differently since you were an adult at the time, and I was just a kid who was happy to be out there hunting. But hunts when I didn't see anything, it didn't feel like it wasn't that bad. Like right now, I don't know if it's just because I look at my cameras and I'm like, okay, the deer are coming in at this stand at this time. They've been there 5 out of the last 6 evenings. Like, this is going to be good. And then you get there and nothing shows. And you're like, what did I do wrong? Why aren't they here?
right.
Whereas back then, if you hunted and you didn't see anything, it's just like, all right, try again tomorrow. I don't know. It feels different now. And I don't know if that's because of the cameras and cell cams now, or if that's because I'm just a grown up now. I don't know.
I think it's probably a combination, but I think you're right. I was out there last week. Of course, I text you. What stands are active, and you tell me. And this last week I'd be out there, and it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was out there in sleet and 30, low 30s. Nothing shows up. Whereas the day before, you had 3 deer out there, or half dozen deer. So I think some of it's just we see stuff, and before it's like
Yeah.
And back to Hamilton, for your listeners, I know it's probably boring them, but whenever we'd kill something, it's a 20-minute drive back into town, to go to the processor. But we always had an agreement: if we killed something, especially evening, we'd go and have dinner in town at the Chicken
Express.
And we're sitting there one night. Remember, we sat there one night and we're watching this lady, and she hit the telephone pole.
I remember that. We're sitting in the parking lot, and I think it was the parking lot across the street.
Right.
We're just watching her slowly drive across this parking lot straight into a telephone pole.
I said, she's gonna hit the pole.
I remember
We'd always go in because but back in Hamilton we were in a tent.
Mm-hmm.
And we were tent camping. So I can remember one morning waking up, you and I, and you could just see just our noses sticking up because it was 26 degrees in the tent. It was
Oh yeah,
cold.
no, it's changed a lot now. We've upgraded.
I'm spoiled.
We're in a camper now. We got the buddy heaters. We got
Got a little electricity when you turn the generator on.
I mean, yeah, we got electricity at night, so that's nice. But yeah, I think back to that, and not that I don't regret it or anything. I don't know. I'm either spoiled or just smarter now. I don't know, one or the other. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I always remember, like, we would go to the lease, and we would have, what was it? I feel like when we'd get into town, there were several times we'd stop at Dairy Queen,
Mm-hmm.
and we eat at Dairy Queen, like right on our way to the lease.
Right.
And then we would go hunt, and if we killed something, that was dinner, was Chicken Express.
Right.
And then out there, you would always cook breakfast after the morning hunt, which was around lunchtime or so, but you'd make toast and eggs and Spam and all that kind of stuff. And I remember
Tastes
those.
good outside.
Oh yeah, it always did. Yeah, that's what you always said. We did that on Texas Dirt. We've done that before, where we cook breakfast out there and have kind of the same thing. But I've also enjoyed, and we are a lot closer to town out there than we were in Hamilton, but I do enjoy going to a mom and pop hole in the wall breakfast joint in town there too, and having breakfast there sometimes. That's enjoyable as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. But
yeah, I told your mom when I got back this last time. I got up the next morning. I said, "It sure is nice to have a hot cup of coffee when you get up in the morning."
yeah,
because they don't have that out at the lease. So,
Yeah. No, it's times change and everything, but it's fun to think back. I was thinking back on that stand you just talked about with that buck that you killed that came in crawling on his head. You shot another deer out of there that was a really big buck. That big 8-point. That seemed like this always be the stand that you shot. Like there were good bucks up there in that area.
Yeah, it was in a lot of oak trees there. It was a mesquite flat, but a lot of oak trees. But also it was the fence line was probably 20, 30, 50 yards to the left of where the stand was. I can't remember what direction that was, but yeah, there just seemed to be a lot of bucks up there in that area, but a lot of deer.
I remember you hunted up there a lot, and you shot a couple of really nice bucks out of that stand. I only remember hunting up there one time, and I shot that big pig up there one time. It was like the very last day of the season, and I shot that big pig out of that stand. But I can't remember hunting there. That always seemed like the place that you went, but for whatever reason, that's the only hunt that I have a memory of me being the hunter in that blind. But yeah, I don't remember why, or if I just wanted to go somewhere else. But
well, you favored SST because we'd always see deer there too.
I liked SST a lot when we had that.
That would have been a good bow blind, you know.
Oh yeah, it would have been a good spot for a bow blind, and I think back to all that stuff now as far as how I could have bow hunted that property, and yeah, it probably would have been pretty good for that too. But I thought the other day about us putting together that ladder out there, that ladder stand, and you might have a better or different memory of it than me, but we're trying to jam a section of the ladder in there, and I don't know how it popped out or anything, but it popped out and it punched me right in the face, like knocked me back. Yeah. And you're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And everything, and so we go back to putting it together, and then it did it again. It did it again and knocked me back a second time. And I thought about that the other day because I was putting together a metal ladder stand for a new spot on Texas dirt, and I was putting it together in the driveway at the house, not at the deer lease, because I wanted to make sure I had the right tools and just make my life easier and take it out there in one piece. But Wyatt was out there helping me, and I was thinking about that. I was like, I was not much older than you are now when when that ladder popped me in the face. Yeah. But that's a fun memory.
Yeah, and I remember the first time we ever went out there, Mr. Ken took us out. It was just for the day hunt. He didn't hunt that time, but he just drove us out there because we didn't know where Hamilton was, or where the lease was, and we drove out there, and there was just a big field out there of deer. Mm-hmm. And so he pulled over, and you and I crossed a creek, and I got up on a fence line and shot a nice doe in the field and drug it out. And Mr. Ken came over to help me, field dress it. And I told you, because you're like 7 years old, and I said, you don't just stand here. You can go stand over there, not knowing how you'd react to blood and guts and gore and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And before I know it, you're standing over there watching us, field dress this deer. And then later on in the day, I shot another deer, and I remember on the way home that night, you said, "Gee, Dad, I like this hunting. It sure is easy." That's a 7-year-old's perspective.
Yeah, that's something that Wyatt would say right now. I feel like I could hear my son saying that. You're like, yeah, it's super super easy, bud. It sure is. Yeah. But no, that's a lot of good memories out there. I wish that property could be something, like I said at the beginning, something that I look at differently now, as far as, oh man, we could have done so much more with that, and probably not just been more successful. We were plenty successful, I felt like, but not just more successful, but probably, I know that there's some big deer down there, and I just don't think that, at least for me as a kid, I didn't understand the caliber of deer that were out there to be had if you were willing to put in the work and the time to get them. I do remember one of the times that I just hunted open air and picked a spot and sat down. It was when, if you kept on driving past camp, you went through that little dip, and then I forget how the road went, but up there and to the right is where we had that blind that we put in there, where I shot a big doe out of that one year.
I remember that.
But if you kept going, it was open. There was like a creek that ran through the middle, and then trees on the other side. I went to that other side and sat right there one time, and I remember that's where I saw the biggest buck I ever saw out there, and I did not get a shot at him. But I'm sitting there and I'm looking out, and I hear rustling behind me, and so I kind of lean forward and look around the cedar that I'm sitting against, because it kind of cut back. The tree line cut back a little bit, and right in that cutback, I looked over right as this huge buck stepped out of the trees right there, and as soon as he stepped out, he looked at me. He had me pegged from the moment he stepped out. But I just remember a giant rack. I mean, he was probably an 8 or a 10 point. I'm not trying to make him sound like he was a world record or anything, but it was the biggest deer that I ever put eyes on out there. Mm-hmm. And he turned and went back into the trees. But I remember that to this day. It's like, oh my word, that's a huge deer. I was so excited.
And one of the hunter I do remember out there at Hamilton was, you mentioned that blind that Grandma we put in. Mm-hmm. And you just started hunting by yourself, and you were in that ground blind, and I always walk about 100 yards away and just sit down, so I'm not too far off, but I'm out close by.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up and just seeing this huge pig walk by, and I thought, nah, we're hunting deer. And I thought, and this pig was good size, and I thought he'll tear up the property. So I just put my gun up, shot, and he dropped right there, and I was not trying to hunt, run your hunt because you're 100 yards away, but it was a big pig.
Yeah.
And I can remember you and I trying to get it up on
the hitch haul. Yeah.
We were having to try to back it up on a hill so we can just roll that pig in there, and the processor goes, man, that's a big pig. we didn't even try to gut him. We just said, took him, let the processor do that.
Yeah.
And he was good. It tasted good.
Yeah. What was the processor's name?
BJ.
BJ. That's right.
I don't know the last name. Just initials were BJ.
Yeah. That. He was always a hoot.
Yeah.
we brought him a lot of deer, and he would always make comments about that. Of course, you would take off work for like a week, and we'd go out there for 4 or 5 days, however long we'd stay out. Yeah. And you would always try to go in the middle of the week, like, because you knew the other guys out there on the lease, they go out there on the weekends and everything, and rightfully so. But you're like, I want to be out there when no one else is out there, so we'll go out during the week. And so yeah, BJ, sometimes he would see us between the two of us like 3-4 times in a week, and he's just like, man, y'all are killing deer. Yeah, for once.
Yeah. Not right now.
Yeah, a little bit different story right now, I feel like, unfortunately. But you also got this one on the wall right here. That was a unique trip. Yeah. We didn't have a lease for several years, and so that was the kind of the family's gift to you one year, was getting you a deer hunt down the hill country. Mm-hmm. You shot that nice 10 point, and I remember that because at that point I was an adult, but I started hunting by myself when I was a kid, and we were still on the lease together. And then when we got off of that lease, and a couple years later we started hunting down in Weatherford or Peaster, that area. Yeah. And I'm a teenager at that point, and then I start driving not long after that. So at that point I felt like I was just gung-ho and wanting to hunt, so I was like, I would just go out there whenever it worked for me to go out there. And we didn't hunt together as much out there. So I remember that hunt with that buck that's on the wall behind the camera as being the first time in a long time that you and I got to seem like hunt together.
Yeah. And we hadn't sat in the stand probably 10 years or so.
Yeah, it'd been a while.
Nice, and I can remember that first morning we got up and we're sitting in the stand, and it's pitch black, and we are next to each other. And I mean, if I looked over, I can't even see. It's that dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, you were doing the video, and I was you're doing hunt. But I can still remember the afternoon we're sitting in that stand where I killed this deer out of in the afternoon before, and your eyes got real big, and you said, "Dad, don't move." And there was a big buck behind me, coming.
So yeah, and we filmed all this, and I will have to go back because it's on our YouTube channel, Fall Obsession's YouTube channel somewhere, and I will have to go back and add it to this video or put a link up there for folks to click on. But that hunt, that deer came out, and he just had all sorts of. He was like a mainframe 10 or something like that, but he had kickers and junk, just stuff happening everywhere. But the one thing that you observed very quickly, and you said, he's like, that's a young deer. And he was probably only 3. Yeah. So you made the decision to pass on him, which, as cool as he was, it was the right decision to make. Just he can be a whole lot more than what he is now. If he's a 3-year-old and he's already that, imagine what he'll be at 4, 5, or 6. Oh, yeah. So, but I remember that, just looking at that buck and getting video of him, I was like, man, that deer is crazy looking.
And we named that deer like 130 or 230 or something like that. We gave him a name because of the clock when he came out.
Yeah, I think it was 2:30 or something is when he
came out
walked
at
out.
2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, and then we had another really big 8-point come in. Had crab claws in the front. He was also a really nice buck, but you ended up taking it down to the last hunt with that one. And I can't remember. I can't remember if the guide kept telling us that there was a big 10 in there, and that's kind of what we were hoping to see. And honestly, I don't remember if that is the big 10 he was talking about, but yeah, held out to the last morning. And I remember you shot. Like we knew that deer was out there before legal light, and we can tell it's a big deer, and we're watching the clock waiting for it to be legal shooting light before you take the shot. It was first thing in the hunt that morning when you shot him.
But this one pushed the other ones around.
Yeah.
This one, even though the horns are smaller, it just it was the dominant deer.
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, he was a mature deer. He's tall.
Yeah.
Really tall buck.
And that was one of the priorities, is we wanted to make sure we took a mature deer and not a young deer just because it was big. So
yeah.
That was what we were trying to do. And it got a doe too.
Yeah, and you shot a doe also. Yeah, I remember. That was a cool hunt. Enjoyed that one.
And you've gone from that to going to Idaho to hunt elk, and Colorado to hunt mule deer and pronghorn, and
yeah,
Wyoming.
Been around a little bit, but yeah. I been able to take a pronghorn buck and a muley buck. Still got that elk dream to accomplish one day, but yeah, it's been fun getting to learn how to hunt out west and everything like that. And
well, you got that conference you're going to next year in Kansas. Maybe someone will give you a chance to get on a big Kansas deal.
Yeah, if I don't, it might be too early for deer season. But if there's anything to hunt in Kansas in September, and you're listening to this, give me a shout. I might add a couple days to my trip. But yeah, that is one thing I think I would like to do. Like, I enjoy hunting Texas. I'll always want to hunt Texas to some extent, but like growing up, we would always watch the Monster Buck VHS tapes and everything, Bill Jordan and all them, and I was sucked in by all the Midwestern hunts with a bow and everything like that, where you're sitting 25 feet up in a tree in Kansas, and you can see 800 yards away this buck pop out of the trees, and he walks right down like from 800 yards away, right down the trail where they're sitting, and they shoot him. Big old 180-inch whitetail. It's like, it doesn't have to be a 180, but I'd like to experience that at some point in my life. I think that'd be cool.
You got to get up there where they grow lots of crops, and even like hearing Todd talk about, I've got corn over here, and I'm hunting over here, and you need to have grain or something out there to feed them.
Yeah,
attract them.
Well, and I saw that up in Colorado when I went up there with Tim and Mike Teepee up there. Is the just the difference in the size of the deer. I mean, obviously it's northeastern Colorado, practically Nebraska. So yeah, the deer are going to be bigger up there. But I remember I shot the muley buck I shot. He was a younger buck. I mean, still a 9-10 point deer, but younger deer. And I'm looking at his body, and I'm like, he's well over 200 pounds on the hoof, and I'm just looking at him like, this is a massive deer. This animal is huge compared to what I'm used to in Texas and everything. And they're like, yeah, this isn't even like a an old buck or anything. This is on the younger side of the spectrum. And I was like, golly, that's crazy. And that and then like, even I've been up to the lease where Waylon and them hunt up in Vernon for veteran hunts in 21, 22, and 23. And even up there, you got more crops and more stuff up there in that area. And the body size of the deer up there is just, it's huge, massive deer up there. And every year they shoot giants. Waylon has a state record out of there, low fence free range. I forget where he ranks, like number 5 or something like that in that area for the biggest free range buck that he's been taking up there. And every year those guys just shoot big bodied deer. And yeah, it comes down to diet and how long you let them walk. So yeah, it's different worlds of hunting too. But yeah, I remember with Idaho, it's that too has just been, that's just a whole nother experience, a whole nother world. And I think that's another part of, like, I get on my soapbox of conservation and everything on the podcast, but I've stood on a mountaintop and looked over what a millions of acres of public land looks like and everything, and I'm standing in the smack dab middle of it, and it's like, this is pretty incredible that places like this still exist. So yeah, it's a whole nother world out there.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere the other day where I think half of Wyoming is owned by the U.S. government. It's all government land. And of course, I know a lot of it's desolate, having lived up there, for a number of years. And you fly over, and it is desolate.
Yeah. No, it's just, experiencing the flatland eastern Colorado hunt and the amount of ground that we covered with that. And granted, we couldn't cover that much ground if it wasn't for all the permission pieces that we had, or that Tim's family had up there. But, up there looking for muleys and whitetails, and literally on the Onyx app, we're tracking it throughout the week, and we scouted over 68,000 acres in a week up there, put 1,400 miles on a pickup, driving all that in a week. It's just like the amount of space that you have to roam when you're hunting out west is just, it's crazy. So, and I made the comment, and I've said it on here before, I feel like I have learned more from the limited amount of time that I've hunted out there. Like, down here, it's been decades of learning as you go, I feel like, down here. And I've learned from other people, yourself included, as well. But I've told people when, at least for me, when I've planned an out-of-state hunt, an out-of-state trip, it's like, okay, I got to do as much research as I can before I go out there, so I'm as prepared as I can possibly be, because I'm only going to be out there for a week. I only have a week to get this done. And then while you're out there, you're like a sponge. You're taking it all in. You're learning as much as you can, actually boots on the ground, hoping that it leads up to you being able to make a successful decision. And then even after you get done, you're thinking back over everything like, oh, I could have done that differently, or this would have been better if I did that. And, you're recapping it in your mind. And just from an educational standpoint, it's been like, okay, this is, I feel like I have retained so much information in short periods of time, because I tally it up, and I've spent, I don't know, a month of my life, maybe a little bit more, hunting in another state in total. Like, when you tally up the actual days that I spent hunting in all these states, I've spent a month of my life, and that's it, hunting in other states. But the amount of stuff I feel like I've learned from it is, I feel like it's been a lot longer than that, if that makes sense. So it's just, I don't know. It's all how you value the information, I guess. But
Well, you need that information to be successful, and you're smart to say to those who, like Tim, how do you hunt this? Although he never bow hunted it, but you can learn from him, and
well, that's my own stubbornness. I certainly could have killed a bigger deer if I had rifle hunted out there,
Sure.
but at the same time, like that deer that for the hunt that I had to kill that deer, it could have been a 200 incher as far as I'm concerned, or it could have been a forky, and it would have meant the same thing. So I'm very happy with the buck that I got out there.
I remember you calling me and saying, "Dad, I got to stalk it." Like we saw on the monster.
I was thinking the whole time, like I crawled in 200-300 yards on my hands and knees with my bow, and I was thinking the whole time. I remember that it was Nick Munt from Bone Collector. It was his hunt, and he's crawling through a row of corn, and there's a muley buck bedded farther down there, and he gets, I don't know, 20 something yards, however far from him, and he kind of sits up on his butt and draws back, and he's going mark mark, trying to get that deer to stand.
Right.
And on the video you just see tines in the corn start moving, and then eventually this deer stands up, and as soon as that deer stands up, he shoots. And I remember just always thinking, whenever I watched that hunt, looking back, I was like, oh, that is so cool. That's incredible. And that's exactly what happened. And it seems so surreal. I was like, oh, I did it. It worked. It actually worked. And I didn't think it was like the first time I did it, it wasn't going to work. I was 38 yards and trying to, like, full draw, standing up, grunting at him, trying to get him to stand. He wouldn't stand up. So I just got down and crawled 10 yards closer and did it again, and then it worked. So
How far did you run after you shot him?
He ran 80 to 100 yards, and I remember that, like, he ran 80 to 100 yards and dropped, and as soon as I saw him, like, I'm glued to him, and this is 2 weeks after I shot that buck at camp stand.
Right.
And hit him high and never recovered him. So I was like, I'm gonna watch this thing drop. And so
I got to walk right to that spot.
I'm glued to him until he stops, and I see him wobbling. I see his face tumble into the ground, and that's when I just started jumping up and down. So I was like, I was so excited. And I mean, Tim's familiar out there, so he knew what was at stake. But those guys were a half mile from me on the hill in the truck, watching the whole thing go down. So as soon as I put my hands up and started jumping up and down, that truck peels out on the dirt road, and I see it coming down the hill, coming toward me, and they pull into the field, and Mike is like wanting to get out of the truck and celebrate with me, and Tim's like, no, drive over there. Like Tim hadn't taken his eyes off of the spot, and because he's hunted out there long enough his whole life that he knows, okay, if you don't keep an eye on where that deer went down, it could be laying there dead. But this stuff is so flat, the CRP's so tall, it all looks the same. He goes, you might be out here for hours looking for the deer that you just took your eyes off of. So right. He was like, I'm not celebrating until we actually put hands on him. And he drove over there, and Mike and I started walking. And Mike actually is the one that walked up on him. He walked over and saw him laying there. So yeah, it was cool. Felt like I was in the movies.
Well, you know what's neat is you have that on that night when you did the podcast. There at Tim's place, that you have the excitement in your voice and the image of what just happened. You can listen to that 20 years from now.
Well, and
watch it.
And I tell folks, I've said it on here before, I don't listen to a lot of our episodes back again. Like, by the time I record it, so I'm a part of it when we're recording, and then I edit it, and then I go back through and edit to pull reels and clips for social media out of it. I have a way that I do that makes it as efficient as possible, but still I spend a lot of time with that episode
Right.
before and when it's released. So I rarely go back and re-listen to my own podcast, but that is an episode that at least every year around the time of that hunt, around Thanksgiving time, I typically go back and listen to that one again, because it is cool to get to relive that.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the story, but like you just said, we recorded that podcast 7 hours after I shot that buck, so pretty the emotion and the reaction was pretty genuine.
Exactly.
And authentic, and yeah, you can't replicate that. You can't make that happen again.
Right.
So
Right.
I enjoy that for sure. That's one of the few that I go back and recap from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Cool.
well, what else? You got anything else on? You got a list over there of stuff that memories and stuff like that you wanted to pop back up? I didn't know if you had anything else on there, but
I was going through my list, unless you have something.
no.
I know you mentioned the big pig, and we mentioned that already, and there's a whole podcast on that, you said. So.
Yeah, that was a memorable that was a memorable one for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I sat in that stand here about a couple weeks ago, and I thought to myself, oh, this is where it happened.
you checking to make sure you had your keys.
I locked my truck at the least, as much as I hate to say it. I mean, you're out there in the middle of nowhere, but I don't want that to happen again.
No, especially after that happened, but even like that guy wandering around up there stole your truck. There's enough oil field guys that drive through there, and not that I think ill of any of them. We haven't had any issues so far,
they've been good so far.
but you never know. And then the neighbor that I've caught trespassing out there and stuff, I lock my truck now. And even Nick's dad, Robbie, I think he even made a comment on how before your incident, he never really locked his either, and he's like, yeah, I'll lock my truck now. So yeah, but that's a good one for our listeners to go back and listen to as well, because that's something that doesn't happen. But the cool thing is your truck got stolen, and you still got to process the pig that was in the back of it when the dude stole it. So
yeah. Yeah. So
we always have adventures that come along, and just because it's been since then that I've had you on the show. Last year, and it wasn't real funny for you and either of us in the moment. Might still not be, but then your truck breaking down at the least last year, and I was out there with you that time. I didn't have to come rescue. I remember being in camp, and you were coming back from the range, and I remember you pulling in. I was like, man, his truck sounds weird. And you killed it. We talked for a while, and you went to go start it, and then that's when it wouldn't start, and that whole debacle began. Yeah. Long story short, we got a local Chevy dealer there in town to agree to look at it and try to get you up and running as quickly as we could, but we had to get it to him.
Yeah.
And I had ratchet straps in my truck, but they were not rated for the weight of another truck. So we are limping our way from the lease to town to the Chevy dealership, and like I am trying to not jerk your truck too hard, because if I do, the strap's gonna snap and all this. And we had those straps, we were piecing them back together after they broke because we didn't have anything else, and
we're just blue collar people.
we have the same problems as everybody else, and there's a better way to do probably most of the stuff that we do. But I went out and bought some heavy duty straps after that are rated for 3,300 pounds, so that
I've got a big chain out there, I mean, it's a big thick chain. I'll throw it in my truck, just in case.
Yeah, but just another one that we can look back and chuckle about now, I guess. That it wasn't very funny in the moment, but it worked out. Well, thanks for visiting with me and recapping some memories and everything.
Thank you.
I enjoy the stroll down memory lane, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity soon to make some more. Maybe kill some deer.
We'll have a chance to be at the lease together and hopefully knock some stuff down and have something to talk about, more than more recent.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I did shoot a buck earlier this year, and I haven't talked about it on the podcast a lot, and a majority of the story I'm saving it for. I'm going to do a show with Nick after the season's all said and done, and we're going to kind of recap our struggles as we seem to do annually, yet again. But so I will share the story in its full extent at that time. But I know that was a learning experience for me as a hunter, even this season, because I shot a buck with my bow. It was not the buck that I thought it was, and the recovery was challenging. The shot was lethal, but the recovery was challenging. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, had a couple of friends helping us track, and some of the comments that they made when I recovered the deer were discouraging. And then I'm looking at a buck that is not the buck that I thought it was.
Right.
And it was a lot of frustration, and I was angry. I was frustrated with the whole situation, and then I was frustrated that I felt frustrated about killing a deer. I was like, I should feel excited about this.
Right.
And in hindsight, I would have handled that whole situation a whole lot differently. I'm happy that I filled a tag. For all I know, at the rate that our bucks are disappearing, I'm likely won't get a shot at another buck this year anyway. So It is what it is. But I don't know. It was a growing experience for me, because in hindsight, I don't feel like I gave that animal the respect that it deserved through that kill, and that was humbling for me. So I'll talk about that more when the time comes, but
sure.
For those who have heard me mention a couple times that I have shot a deer this year, yes, I have. Yes, I found it. Yes, it was a buck. It just it gave me some other things to evaluate as a hunter, that some challenges that I had to work through personally that I've never really had to deal with before. So, but anyway.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you, Fall Obsession Nation.
Yeah.
Thanks for your support.
Yeah, always appreciate y'all listening to the show. Still blows my mind, 260-something episodes in, that people still like listening to the show. But y'all obviously do, and I appreciate it. So, but with that, we'll wrap this one up. Thank y'all for tuning in. If you have not already, hit the follow and subscribe button to get notified when we drop new episodes. Please do. We got more coming, more hunting season recaps, both with our own team and with others outside of our team here in the weeks to come. So stay tuned for those. And I'm going to hang it up. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the next one.